fantasy news be flowing. Oh, welcome everybody to another episode of Fantasy Center Mass. Yeah. News. I am your disheveled goblin host, Daniel Greene, and today, we just have nice selection of fantasy news. I don't want to oversell it. I don't want to undersell it. I went through, gathered the stories, and went, I enjoy this episode. It will be fun. So let's go ahead and kick it on off with kind of my favorite style of story to cover, which would be data-driven news, comparing the recent rise in sales between Brandon Stiggerbiggle and Sarah J. Maas, two of the hottest sci-fi fantasy authors of the current era. And I'm careful to include sci-fi there because Brandon Sanderson is certainly stepping into that space aggressively now. But this is in particularly the rise in sales between January 2024 and today. At least the most updated sales figures we have from then to now. Publishers are really sketchy with putting out data. I don't know why. I wish they were more transparent. I'm a hoe for data and that data. Look at him. User Wurthead on Fantasy made a post that I just found delicious. Shout out, credit to you, where they said, back in January 2024, I assembled the latest incarnation of my sci-fi fantasy all-time sales list, which had sales figures of 37 million for Sarah J. Maas in 32nd place, and 40 million for Brandon Stiggerbiggle in 29th place. These were very healthy figures. I'd say that's understating it a smidge, but I appreciate your professionalism. The updated figures for Sanderson via the Edelweiss catalog now have him at 45 million, which would move him up around the 24th place. Very healthy and impressive. Agreed. Unsurprising, as in the meantime, he's released the long-awaited 5th Stormlight Archive novel, Wind and Truth, and is now working on a return to his perennial popular Mistborn sequence. But the updated figures for Maas, straight from her publisher, are eye-popping. And this, before we get into it, quote me here, in the next 5 years, we are going to see Sarah J. Maas enter the top 10 all-time best-selling fantasy sci-fi authors. Predicting it now. She's not there yet. Let's get into the details. The updated figures put her at 75 million, which would rocket her up to around 17th place, passing Sanderson on the list, and instantly make her one of the biggest selling living fantasy writers. To be clear, I don't think Maas has sold another 40 million books in just 18 months. Instead, her publisher has noted that she is now published in 40 languages, and it's likely they've been severely underestimating her prior sales. Updated sales information from foreign sales is the most likely source for this large seeming jump. It is worth noting that Maas published her first novel only in 2012, 7 years after Sanderson published his first. This shows the full, unmitigated firepower of the romantasy subgenre, and its enthusiastic fan base eclipses even that of fans of hard magic systems and intricate world building. Of course, and I'm gonna get into that for it's gonna sound like a joking but a serious reason soon. With sales growing like this, Maas is now looking likely to catch up to the likes of George R.R. Martin, around 95 million, and Sir Terry Pratchett and Robert Jordan, at just over 100 million apiece. And this is without any adaptation of her work. When one finally appears, I can imagine that only increasing her sales presence and profile further. But 45 million sales is still a lot, and I don't think Sanderson will be starving anytime soon. No, he will not. And I'm meaning to have this conversation in a serious way. And so don't think I'm trying to make jokes here, but sex sells. That's just true for marketing and so much more. And as romantasy has become more and more destigmatized, the marketing angle of that has just found incredible benefits for being something that people won't really be judged for reading out and about. Once something hits that super duper ooper level of popularity, it just kind of becomes the norm. And I'm personally fine with that. I'm not a socially conservative person, and so cool. And also, I think Sarah J. Maas, from what I can tell, has been a pretty good pioneer for this space. I'm not as plugged into the romantasy communities, though, so if someone who wants to chime in down below, I'll be sure to pin a comment if it's informative and source-cited. But the real takeaway from this, right, the way it's being presented from Wordhead here is accurate and fascinating, but for me, this is also just about the rise of fantasy literature as a whole. I mean, if you look at a lot of the authors who do have the over 100 million sales, the majority of them had much longer careers to get there, or even fatter bibliographies than the authors who are shooting up to overtake them. And it gives me a lot of hope for my future career and just the love of the genre I have continuing to thrive and grow, seeing more and more people get hooked on into the type of escapism that fantasy and sci-fi can provide. Like, yes, this is amazing for Sarah J. Maas, and she is, without question, the biggest rock star in fantasy right now. Polarizing opinions included, you'll see, I'm sure, in the comments below, but I also just love how this is such a healthy thing for fantasy. It reminds me of like when I was a kid and I slowly saw hip hop, my favorite genre of music, becoming huge with mega stars pushing it further and further and further. Yes, there were individuals who became record breakers, but that was just indicative of the genre doing well as a whole and becoming a cultural mainstay. So cool. Again, shout out to Wordhead. I love anything like this. Mega kudos. Now we're going to take a quick break from the news to talk about Audible stuff. It seems we've been a bit quiet here, and that's not because we're done. It's because we have come across our biggest bit of information yet. I can put it that way. And we're just having to cross a few T's and dot some I's before we release that information. That video will be dropping Thursday. It's planned right now. I can't guarantee that in case we get some additional asks for more time. But I can't say more. Stay tuned. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Next news. But speaking of love for the genre, why don't we all share in enjoying, consuming, taking in some fantastic artwork that has been put forth by publishers created by the craftsmen of the genre who craft these covers. And the first cover reveal is going to be for These Shattered Spires, which has no one facing us. I actually kind of like it. Mysterious. And this is by Cassidy Ellis Salter. Pitched as, in a rotten and bloody world, 4 magical rivals are forced to work together to avoid certain death in a deadly competition. A queer gothic fantasy YA perfect for fans of the Atlas Six and Gideon the Ninth. Entombed beneath a tooth-filled sky, the world rots. Set to be released the 10th of March, 2026 in hardback by Bloomsbury Publishing, the first book in the Weirdo series. And I actually think this is a spectacular cover, that Van Gogh-esque sky with these sharp spires kind of puncturing that depth, added with the title over top, which isn't my favorite aspect of the cover, but then with the characters in the foreground, it really instills this sense of journey and momentum forward in a harsh, snowy, I think, implied landscape. Hell yeah. I like the wind, I like the cloaks, it works. And then we also had Tor.com Publishing releasing the cover for Null Entity by Seth Hutton. We're thrilled to share the cover of Null Entity with cover art by Sleep Captain and designed by C. Volsker. Willa and Sable are taking their revenge on the very corporation keeping the galaxy turning. Coming July 21st of 2026. And then for the penultimate cover reveal today, we have a minimal one called The Infinite State by Richard Swan. Who gives you life? Peter Eternus. Who gives you purpose? Peter Eternus. Who gives you joy? This blistering science fiction epic begins at a flashpoint in the lives of a widowed party member, a disgraced investigator, and a hyper sled pilot, entangled in a plot to escape the suffocating authority of a fascist state. Available August 4th of 2026. Art by Spencer Fuller and Face Out Studios. Huh, that seems like a kinda apt concept. Also, very much so a fan of this cover design. It feels like a throwback retro design to obviously some of the, let's call it, party history that inspired a lot of propaganda posters and things along those lines, but updated and brought forward into a more modern look. Am I way too far to the right? Am I right in this shot right now? I feel like I am. No? That's gonna drive me insane. And the final cover reveal today is going to be from what looks to be the most traditional of the week, and that is not a bad thing. And that's going to be for Eric Lewis's While We Bleed. Our dinosaur was a true bastard. For the right price, he'd get you anything, anyone, anywhere, and not ask questions. So when Barnos Fonseca hired him to obtain the last known vial of plague dust, it was business as usual. He should have known she wouldn't leave any witnesses. Flintlocks flashed, windows shattered, and his head slammed into sharp rock. He escaped with his life, but not his memory. Damn, that's my favorite blurb of the week. Kudos. And the art, kinda kind of liking the light play. Now, shifting gears into the more hardcore fantasy news of the week, I have a quite frankly devastating update for Berserk fans. I'm sorry to let you know that the next volume will not be released internationally for quite some time. Volume 44 is literally years away from being released, even in Japan. That means that the English version is going to be, well, further away, especially since Volume 43 was just released in Japan, but won't receive an official English translation for a while. This is obviously coming in the wake of the tragic passing of Kentaro Miura, and I know it's very common for fans of Berserk to complain about how slow the series takes to make, but usually they're also the most understanding fan base because the art for Berserk is so next level, and Miura is notoriously known for going pixel by pixel because he was a bit insane in the best way. But I think there's even more understanding or leash that can be extended now because of the new team trying to take over and fill the shoes of a titan, not even a giant, like, right? One of the goats of an entire medium. And so, yeah, I'm sad to hear this. I'm even sadder for the fans who have been a part of this journey for longer than myself, but I'm also very willing to let them cook, for lack of a better way to put it. But the image that was in the Volume 33 confirmed that Volume 44 won't be released in Japan until, predicted now, sometime in 2027. And something I was just happy to see from NPR was a list of books readers said shaped them in high school. And wouldn't you know it, fantasy and science fiction were pretty damn prevalent throughout, with the likes of 1984, Lord of the Rings, Fahrenheit 451, and more. I really need to read Kurt Vonnegut. I can't believe I haven't. But I have a question. With 1984 being so influential to so many of us, why are we allowing, you know,
just everything?
Anyway, let's move on. Now, a lot of you enjoyed seeing the mind-blowing fan project for the stop-motion animation Lord of the Rings that was being done over at Andymation, and so I'd like to show you also an incredibly badass fan project, it seems, coming to us from Inferno Plus. This man has put together one of the most impressive mods I have ever seen, where he is porting Morrowind to Elden Ring. And however thorough you're thinking it is more so. He's currently stating it's about halfway done, and he plans to implement some additional voice acting work. Yes, modders now in 2025 are able to do things that previously even game studios struggled to implement at times. God damn. And I just want to continue to bring the positive vibes for fan communities who are so dedicated to the stories that have emotionally impacted them, whether it's books, games, movies. Just cool to see. And in news that's probably gonna make just one or two goblins go, "That? No way! Oh, I've been waiting for years." We have seen that Blizzard in Bator, Planescape Torment, is going to be getting a update that's unofficial and once again a mod. Despite being critically incredibly well reviewed, this game has largely remained untouched since its release. Now though, a group of Polish modders are about to release a massive expansion. Blizzard in Bator will see the Nameless One and his motley crew travel to a new region of Sigil, descend through Planescape's 9 hells down to the frozen wastes of Kane. Here, they'll become embroiled in an endless cold war between the Lords of the Nine, the titular Blizzard, and Boltor. And this mod goes as far as to include 2 new recruitable characters as well, original music, and even cinematics. God damn! And then the final cherry on top for fans is this mod is apparently going to re-include cut content from the game that were like buried within the files, you know, if you can dig through a game's code. But let's go ahead and blitz our way through some quickie news, starting with the fact that Sony is reportedly planning to release a Nintendo Switch style version of the PlayStation in question. That's a PSP. Sorry, not a question, statement. But before we get to the trailer news of the week, I just would like to let you know, for the first time, my company has been affected by the ongoing stupid tariff war. And as a result of that, a lot of people were saying shipping our recent fantasy guide reading poster overseas was just not affordable, not a reasonable price. And after taking a look, I completely agree. And so, as a result of comments like this, Kayla and I have released a $10 digital version that you can download super high res and just support the channel here if you'd like. Thank you so much. Next news. VHS Halloween had a trailer drop, and this will be a new collection of Halloween-themed videotapes added to the legendary VHS franchise. This word also had its trailer drop featuring Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons in what seems to be Emma Stone's and Jesse Plemons' latest endeavor into enjoying acting the bizarre. And I don't even know whether or not this movie is truly going to be sci-fi because the trailer, surprisingly, did not give away the ending. The premise, though, is two conspiracy theorists become convinced that a CEO is an alien, and so they kidnap her. Emma Stone is the CEO, Jesse Plemons is the conspiracy theorist, and that's just damn good casting. And this is from the same filmmaker who made Poor Things, one of my favorite fantasy movies of recent memory. And audience, I have a hard time even finding the words to convey the unbelievability of this next story. I'm flabbergasted, befuddled, lost in the absurdity of this occurring. And that is because Robin Hood's getting another movie. Holy shit, I know. Who would have thunk it?
The man who wins the golden arrow will be Robin Hood.
Tell him I have Robin Hood cornered.
Robin Hood.
Not that Robin Hood.
What do you intend to do about Robin Hood?
Where's Robin Hood?
Well, that's Robin Hood.
I'm known as Robin Hood.
The notorious Robin Hood.
Good day to you, Master Robin Hood.
From Robin Hood, is it?
You're Robin Hood, aren't you?
I'll never leave you, Robin Hood.
I am Robin Hood.
Robin Hood.
For Robin Hood and his merry men.
But now we are seeing that MGM Plus, which yes is a streaming service, is going to be putting out their own adaptation of Robin Hood, the roguish hero. And this will be starring many well-known actors, including Sean Bean, who will be the Sheriff of Nottingham. And despite my sarcastic take on obviously one of the most milked figures from folk history, Sean Bean as the Sheriff of Nottingham is great casting. Kudos. And the production of this seems to have a bigger budget than I would have assumed. So I sounded really harsh when I started this. It's just like, come on, how many Robin Hood takes have there been in our lifetimes? But, you know, it seems like it could be the one. But everything we've talked about today pales in comparison to the hype I have as a result of this next trailer. And that is because we have gotten the full-length red band trailer for the Deathstalker remake. Yeah! And if you were hoping that this movie might be able to capture the 80s vibes of the original Deathstalker, I have good news. The answer is indubitably. This gore-soaked schlock fest is checking all of the boxes for me with its absurdity, low-budget aesthetic, and leaning into what makes these kind of movies a good time to crack open some drinks with, surrounded by your imaginary friends. And it'll be hitting theaters October 10th of 2025. And the biggest surprise of this is that Deathstalker is getting a theatrical release. Not on my bingo card. And yes, I watched Kpop Demon Hunters. It was very, very fun. And the success of this movie has been so gargantuan that it seems Kpop Demon Hunters 2 is already in negotiations between Netflix and Sony. And if I had to guess, this project will be fast-tracked. I just hope they allow the animators to have the time they need, not be crunched, to make the sequel as visually pleasing as the first one was. The color palette choices, lighting design, honestly, the look of the movie might have been my favorite part. I know the songs have been getting so much praise, and they deserve it. Catchy bops. But I think this movie visually was a feast for the eyes, and I really liked how much time it seemed it had to like give detail to every single scene and set piece. But in the final story we're going to be covering today, it's the most important and the one that I have the strongest opinions on. That is because we have seen a historic settlement reached when it comes to the class action lawsuit launched between publishers, authors, and Anthropic for training its AI model illegally on their books. And on Tuesday, a U.S. district judge, William Osloop, confirmed that Anthropic and the authors believe they have a settlement in principle and will file a motion for preliminary approval of the settlement by September 5th. To be clear, this is not the judge undoing or reversing the ruling they had back in June, where they decided it was not copyright violation to train their AI model off of copyrighted works, and instead it's the fine they face for how they acquired the books, pirating. Now, there are 7 million claimants involved in this lawsuit, myself included, and a AI advocate put out the concern that if every author whose who's been stolen from, let's be clear, files a claim it could financially ruin the AI industry. And I'd like you to come here a little closer. A little closer. A little closer. Good. I'm sorry, but if your entire industry has been built off theft, lies, and planning to pay massive amounts of money as a result of your crimes because that's just the cost of business, if that cost of business turns out to be bigger than you expected, f you. I don't care. You stole. Period. Because yeah, oh, the company's gonna lose this money, but we'll pay this amount and actually profit log run. So we don't care. Do it. Fuck you. I don't have any other way to put it. That's morally reprehensible behavior. Mr. Rogers would hate you. And I don't feel bad when I see bad things happen to the people who make these kind of decisions. You know, people who do shit like this and then release statements like that. That's animal behavior, man. Now, to be clear, the details of this have not been put forward yet and likely won't for a few more days. I'll keep it updated here next week. It's just, I'll never understand the tech bro mentality of like, you're stopping our innovation by, you know, wanting to be fairly compensated for your work being used in ways you didn't approve of, possibly ethically. What kind of thinking is that? It's just so broken. Putting this in a more traditional business mindset, because tech bros are so good at spinning crap so that you don't realize what they're doing. If your business cannot afford the raw materials you need to make it functional, then that's not a valid business model. And if you resort to crime to make it a valid one, I think you should be punished. I personally think a lot of the people who make these decisions should be in jail, but we don't live in that kind of world, unfortunately, in my opinion. All right, people get mad when I get political, but you know, they literally stole from me. But this has been your latest episode of Fantasy News. You are likely going to be seeing less of my face in the near future because I'm going to be buckling down and doing the final pass through on the first of the Wheel of Time summary videos. We have unfortunately had our arms twisted and need to make it two separate videos that will be summarizing the entire Wheel of Time because we are well over the 12-hour time limit that's enforced here on YouTube. And also the 4K file is so big that YouTube won't let us upload it if it's at its full size. So in the future, you're going to see the Wheel of Time summary, I think split in the really nice way. It's going to be the Jordan books summary and then broken into the Sanderson books summary. And I'll have kind of an outro for the first one that leads into the second one, explaining the full story of the transition. I am so excited to get this to you all, but I'm going to be reading Adrian Tchaikovsky books. I've now done 7? Yes. And finishing this Wheel of Time project. So unless something kind of smaller floats up, you won't be seeing me too much, though you've had a few book reviews from me released here recently for stuff I've been kind of consuming between Adrian Tchaikovsky books, and that includes Between Two Fires, a Gothic Christian medieval horror book that I fell in love with, and highly recommend you go over to my second channel, Shoveled Goblin, to see one of my favorite book reviews I've ever done. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here or see the Wheel of Time summary videos early. And have a good one, y'all. Peace.